So Socrates was astonished by this answer from the oracle, and he asks himself, what does the god mean? What is his riddle? So he says, I went to one of those reputed wise. I was going to try to prove that the oracle was wrong. And I went to people who said they were, or other people told me that they were very wise, and found and asked them how much they know. That is to say, I went to, for example, the generals and asked them what they knew and didn't find that they were particularly wise about how to conduct warfare or carry on the protection of the state. And I went to the craftsmen and asked them about what they know, and they were not able to articulate their knowledge with any kind of effect or effectiveness, and so I felt that they were not particularly wise. I went to the poets and asked them what sort of wisdom they use when they write their poetry, and they were not able to answer my question. And so I also noticed, Socrates says that sometimes we find people who take themselves to have knowledge, and even if they don't, they consider themselves to be wise even when they're actually ignorant. So Socrates says, that's not true of me. I'm ignorant and I know that I am. And so he goes on, I'm likely to be wiser than others to this small extent. I don't think that I know what I don't know. I don't preen myself. I don't pretend to have knowledge that I lack. And so when Socrates says, I might have a slight advantage over other Athenians, perhaps we're all equally ignorant of the important matters such as virtue and wisdom and justice and how to carry on our lives in a proper way and so on, but at least I'm not under any illusions, whereas many of my fellow Athenians seem to be under illusions because they take themselves to know the answers to these questions, whereas I'm aware of the fact that I don't, and probably no one else does either. So as we stand back from Socrates' remarks here, we can infer that Socrates has something to say that we might refer to under the rubric of wisdom. Being wise is more than knowing lots of things. It's also a matter of having an accurate assessment of yourself, including your own limitation. So someone who's wise might still be fairly ignorant and yet be aware of some important things, including their own limitations, as well as know how to use the knowledge that they do have in an appropriate, effective, and useful manner. So Socrates says, I continued to try to disprove the oracle. I proceeded systematically. I went to the politicians and the poets and the craftsmen, and I asked them what they knew and found that their answers were unsatisfactory. And so Socrates goes on, I became unpopular. And I live in great poverty even now because of my service to the god. My service to the god was to try to disprove his or its answer to the question whether I'm the wisest one or if anybody is wiser than I am. And I at least can see that some young men, the entourage that I've acquired following me around when I ask other people questions, they follow my example. They don't pretend to be wise. They are acknowledging their ignorance, and that might be what makes you think, you fellow Athenians, think that I'm corrupting the youth of Athens, but I don't think that I am. I'm actually just helping them see what is in fact the case. So Socrates now goes to Meletus, speaks to Meletus, one of the main accusers against him, and he says, Meletus, here's one of your accusations against me. You say, Socrates corrupts the youth of Athens and doesn't believe in the gods of our city, but rather in other gods. And Socrates denies that he believes in any other gods, and he doesn't think he's corrupting the youth of Athens. If anything, he thinks he's clarifying and helping them see what is in fact the case. But Socrates proceeds to question Meletus, and here is what I want to mention as a good example of what we now call Socratic method. In Socratic method, we draw out of a person what we think of as being already inside of them. We don't tell them anything new. We try to just elucidate ideas that are already inside of them, just as Socrates had done in his discussion with Minos' slave boy. So Socrates says to Meletus, who do you think improves the youth around here or anywhere? And Meletus replies, perhaps meanly, everyone improves the youth except for you. Socrates responds, okay, well, who improves horses? And Meletus replies, well, horse trainers, of course. Socrates asks, do the wicked, if someone is wicked, do they do harm? And do good people benefit others? That is, are the wicked harmful and the good people beneficial? And Meletus says, yes, they are. Well, Socrates says, would anyone willingly want to harm or be harmed? In particular, would anybody desire to be on the receiving end of some harm? Meletus says, no. I guess he's not considering the possibility of masochists, for example. And Socrates goes on, well, do I corrupt the youth deliberately? Am I actually trying to corrupt them? Meletus says, yes, you are. I think you actually are deliberately corrupting the youth. Socrates replies, but then if I corrupt youth, I risk harming myself because my own well-being depends upon the well-being of the people that are around me. And Meletus doesn't have a very satisfactory answer to this. And Socrates remarks also in this area of the apology that even though he's in danger of being put to death as a result of this trial, depending upon how the jury votes for or against him, he remarks, to fear death is to think oneself wise when one is not, presumably because to fear death is to have some presumptions about what you think is going to happen after the destruction of your body. But Socrates says, I have no idea what will happen after my body is destroyed. Maybe there will be a me that persists that event, or not, I don't know. But to fear death requires a presupposition that I think something bad is likely to happen to me, and I'm ignorant of the question what's going to happen to me at the destruction of my body. So even if I were to fear death, I would be acting as if I have some wisdom that I in fact don't have any right to claim. I'd be acting, presenting myself as having knowledge that I don't in fact have.